Hello, I think we're live.
Good morning.
Good
You are
morning.
tuned in to the Uni Show.
Yes, we're
Good
back, aren't we?
morning. We are back, which is very exciting. My
Yeah.
name's Kate.
And my name's Rach. And as you can see, we are doing this rurally. It looks like we're on a Zoom call, doesn't it?
It does, it does. I mean, I'm so done with Zoom calls. 2021 is not the year of Zoom for me,
I
but
know. Well, do you remember? It's funny, isn't it? This time last year, Zoom was a lollipop, wasn't it? It was no more than a word. And within a few weeks, things changed very, very quickly, didn't they? It's hard to believe that it's been nearly a year since we went into lockdown, isn't it?
it's insane. But anyway, for those that don't know, Rach and I present the Uni Show normally on a Saturday morning. So we kind of discuss all things student-based, student life, things that are affecting young people, whether that be mental health, educational things, and
Virus.
yeah, I mean that's quite a big one this year. But that is pretty much us in a nutshell.
Yes, and we're here to keep you company every Sunday morning now from 10 o'clock. So today we are going to be talking about festivals and the Olympics, because some exciting developments, isn't it? Because the Tokyo Olympics are going ahead this summer, whether rightly or wrongly. I know some people will think differently about that. And if you have strong opinions on it, please do get in touch with us. Just send us a message and we will read it out. And also festivals. So with Glastonbury being cancelled, would you say that Glastonbury is probably the best festival on the planet?
Oh, I think that, yeah, Glastonbury has a reputation certainly as being, like the one to go to. I think in terms of like range of music, it is kind of unparalleled in that sense. But,
Yeah.
I think it's quite hard to kind of designate anything as the best festival. Like, we've all got individual tastes and yeah, I mean, some people really might not like it. I mean, I found it actually a bit too big when I went.
When did you go, Kate? Tell us about your experience. I should point out I haven't actually been to any festivals. That I don't really think they're my thing. I'm not too good with crowds, so I don't know if I'd be if I'd enjoy them. But I have heard just through the grapevine and just through friends that Glastonbury is probably the best festival out there. So how was it? When did you go? Did you say?
So I think I went in 2017 to Glastonbury, 2018 potentially now. Now we're in 2021. Yeah, I think my experience of it.
Was that when Kanye was headlining?
I don't think it was. It was headliners were like Ed Sheeran, Chic, Stormzy was chilling, Jeremy Corbyn made an appearance on the stage at some point.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was quite a lineup. But yeah, so my experience of it was very big, which I know kind of like goes without
Huge.
saying. But yeah, I was actually volunteering there, and where we were camped in our volunteering campsite, it was a long, long way from the main stage and from where I was working. So I'd need to factor in a 40-minute walk every morning at about 7 a.m., which really does take it out of you when you've got a day of work and then the rest of the night to go out in.
Getting your steps in though, Kate, aren't you?
Sorry?
Getting your steps in.
I certainly did. And my dancing in. But yeah, the fact that you have to factor in so much time to get anywhere, I'm just not a very organized person. And when I'm at a festival, I kind of want everything to be quite compact. I want to be able to find my friends very easily, not have to kind of like try and call them as we're out and then there's always no reception and that kind of thing. But it was a lot of fun. And I mean, this year I would certainly go back to whatever festival. And yeah, I've been looking online, but actually so many things have sold out already, which is insane. I think UK is going on a madness 2K21, it seems.
Yeah. Well, I guess the reason why Glastonbury has been cancelled this year, they announced it quite early, didn't they? I think it was sort of February time. They said weren't going to go ahead with it. And I guess the reason for that is because it's such a gargantuan festival, and obviously they have to do so much preparation before. And obviously they've got to do bookings, they've got to get accommodation sorted. There's just so much preparation involved because it's such a festival. And obviously, given where we were a few months ago, I suppose they realized that they just couldn't do it. But with with the other ones. I mean, I know that Reading is going ahead, and that's obviously that's still a huge festival in itself, but it's slightly
Yeah.
smaller in comparison with.
Yeah, I just mean like from the past week, from what I've been looking at, I mean, most of them seem to be going ahead. Things like Parklife in Manchester, Creamfields is a huge one. I think it sold out in record time this year.
Yeah.
Boomtown's going ahead. Yeah, Reading, as you say, Leeds, all of those ones.
They're all slightly later than Glastonbury, aren't they?
Yeah,
Reading,
you're right.
July, August time. Do you think perhaps that's a factor as to why they're going ahead, because they're happening later? So I don't know. I guess the assumption is that things will hopefully be better by then, and hopefully more people will have been vaccinated, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, a few of them I'm looking into are actually September time, like very early September, and I just feel like it's kind of a safer bet. Like, obviously, you're going to get your money back or get your ticket for another year, regardless of what happens. So that's not like really a consideration. But like, I do really want to be able to see some live music this summer if possible. I do know some friends that booked El Dorado, and that's I think the 4th of July. And I was like, guys, that is, you know. It could, but it is cutting it very fine when it's June 21st is that big date when we're all
yes, it is
free. But yeah, it's going to be a weird one. I think for many artists as well, they don't really want to put the time and effort into preparing for a festival that may or may not go ahead. And certainly something like Glastonbury, although, you know, they've built up such a name for themselves, it is initially like, you know, a family-run festival, like the family. I don't think they can necessarily afford another year of cancellation when they had to cancel on, I think it was like Britney Spears last year and like various like very high tier artists.
Sad, isn't it? It's so sad. I mean, when you think of the headliners of Glastonbury, like Stormzy, Jay-Z, Beyonce, Coldplay headlined it. It's just, oh gosh, it's so sad. But I have actually got a statement from Glastonbury Festival just saying, actually, yeah, this was in January, so this was very, very early on. It just says, with great regret, try that again. With great regret, we must announce that this year's Glastonbury Festival will not take place, and this will be another enforced fallow year for us. In spite of our efforts to move heaven and earth, it has become clear that we simply will not be able to make the festival happen this year. We're so sorry to let you down. As with last year, we would like to offer all those who secured a ticket in October 2019, which feels like a lifetime ago. I don't know about you, but just 2019 just feels like it was about 5 years ago. To roll out their £50 deposit over to next year and guarantee the chance to buy a ticket for Glastonbury 2022. So 2022 is looking like the year for, I'm saying, normality in inverted commas, because yeah, hopefully it will go ahead in 2022. But I guess this is kind of linked to the topic of the Olympics, because obviously you have to get people vaccinated, and obviously the Olympics are going ahead this summer, and not everyone will be vaccinated. But hopefully by 2022, more people will be vaccinated, I guess.
Yeah, and I know certainly like in live sport recently, you know, so many cases have come from, you know, hotels quarantining. Like, wasn't there something going on with like the Australian Open when a cleaner was tested positive with coronavirus and then infected several players, and then the entire team then had to like quarantine in a hotel, and it still went ahead. Like, I think regardless, the Australian Open was determined to go ahead and it was just going to do it. But yeah, obviously when you have like such a close-knit team training, and then obviously you've got the whole crowd situation and people are going to be near each other and all of that, I mean, how they can expect, I mean, yeah, just for me, the prospect of festivals happening, I can't imagine it. Like, there are people buying tickets and I can't picture what it would be like being in a field, being in a crowd, and yeah, working and anything there. I think most I would probably do at the moment would be put down a deposit, just because I just don't think there's much certainty at this point, but it is all very exciting.
It is exciting. And just following on from that, there was a similar situation with the Six Nations about 2 weeks ago. The France team, I think their coach tested positive for coronavirus, or he had coronavirus unknowingly, and then passed it on to most of the French team. And then the French team couldn't then play a game in the Six Nations, because obviously they had to quarantine. So yeah, but just following on from what you were saying, that's a really, really interesting point in in saying you don't know how you'll feel. And I think there's a lot of talk at the moment, just from conversations that I've had with friends, about kind of a bit of anxiety about returning to normal. I'm again using that in quotes, because the normal, as it were, is going to be, it's not going to be how it was before. It's going to be slightly different, but it's still normal in the sense that we'll be able to socialize again. But I think a lot of people are maybe feeling a bit nervous and a bit anxious about potentially being in crowded spaces. I know I said earlier that I'm not great in crowds, which is why I haven't been to any festivals. Yeah, I think a lot of people are definitely feeling, I'm definitely feeling a bit nervous about potentially being in a pub in London with friends, but also being with loads and loads of people. It's going to be very, very, it'll be quite a big adjustment, I think, especially for people who live by themselves, to suddenly, you know, now be going to cafes or restaurants when they open up, and suddenly being surrounded by people. And obviously, in the extreme situation, going to a festival where you're with thousands and thousands of people, it's definitely going to be a bit overwhelming, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. I can remember when retail first opened back in, I think it must have been like July last year.
Yeah,
and it was like the first time,
July, wasn't it? Because everyone was going on about how it was Independence Day for the UK, and
I do remember, yeah, there were some great news about that. But yeah, I remember going to like Oxford Street for the first time, and then we met on Oxford Street maybe in August or something, and I think it was just quite, it was really, really odd that there were so many people in like Piccadilly Circus, because like I'd been a couple of times in during the lockdown, and it had just been obviously like completely deserted, and it was really nice, and I've never seen it like that. And you know, normally Oxford Street, I'm quite an impatient person, and I'm quite a fast walker.
Yeah,
and you can't afford to be on.
We go well together, Kate.
It doesn't. But yeah, it was really, really bizarre, like going there with the crowds, obviously not really the tourism side of things, but then even since like going to kind of Leicester Square and all of that, like it's been really, really odd. I do really miss London though. Like I haven't really been central since probably the last, you know, break from lockdown, which was back in November or so.
When you say you miss London, do you mean you miss kind of the London before lockdown? Do you miss kind of the buzz of it, and the people in Oxford Street, for example? I know obviously we said we don't really like people. No, we don't really like crowds and kind of the busyness that you get in Oxford Circus when it's busy. But do you miss? Is that what you miss? Is it the buzz and the kind of thrill of being in a big city and being around people?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of things. I think it's probably also kind of like the nightlife aspects of London. Not in terms of necessarily going out, but you know, being able to go to meet a friend in a bar, or even just when it comes down to going for a coffee. You know, I love meeting my friends for coffee dates. It's something I've really grown into. I feel like I am turning into my mother, but it, you know,
you and me,
it's great, and I absolutely love it, and I'm really missing that kind of like side of things. So yeah, I think it's just kind of hospitality in general. I mean, it gives us so many opportunities to socialize. Like, you know, this week I wanted to see a few friends coming up, or next week or so. And it's just so difficult when it's like chucking it down with rain. But
yeah, I think it's also just the spontaneity of it as well. Just sort of being able to message a friend and say, hey, do you want to go for coffee, kind of thing, and just saying, okay, we'll meet at 10:30 at, you know, the coffee room, and just being able to just as you say, just go for a coffee and chat, and not having to think, oh gosh, okay, you know, have we got our masks, and you know, having to just having the organicness of just being able to meet up with someone.
Yeah, I massively agree, and we will be back for more festival chit chat just after a short break. Don't go anywhere.
Stay with us. So we are back.
We are back. You are listening to the Uni Show with me, Kate.
And me, Rach. I was actually going to go and grab some. I wasn't sure how long we had for our break, but we
Yeah.
didn't have very long. I was going to go and grab
It really
pancakes.
caught me off guard. I was just on my phone.
Yeah. I made some pancakes this morning actually, and I've been eating them all morning. So it's probably a good thing that I'm here and not able to go.
Very jealous. Enforced pancake hiatus. I love it.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people have been baking, haven't they? I know obviously this time last year when we first went into lockdown, a lot of people started baking bread, and it was also banana bread, wasn't it? That seemed to be
Short life. I've never seen a banana bread in my life, but it'll be too soon.
Oh gosh, I know what you mean. I think a lot of people do now associate banana bread with lockdown, but I think in some ways it's a good thing, isn't it? Because baking is so, as you know, I'm a big baker. It's so fulfilling, and it's such an enjoyable, peaceful, therapeutic thing to do. But having said that, a lot of people have been making a lot of banana bread, and I'm actually not a big fan of banana bread. So yeah.
Well, no, I mean, I've consumed a lot, but not made too much. We're going off on a slight tangent here.
We are, sorry. I'm thinking about pancakes.
Today in the Uni Show, we are talking about festivals, the Olympics coming up, and pretty much everything that comes along with that, no social distancing, going back out with your friends again, what that might bring up for people, live music, which is great. So, Rach, you say that you're not too keen on going to any festivals. Is that kind of like a pre-COVID situation, or?
Yeah, no, it was. I mean, I love going out to clubs or bars or whatever it is, but I don't know. I've seen so many of my friends have been to Glastonbury Festival, and I actually went to school not too far from Glastonbury, so I kind of feel like weirdly I've been there because I was always at school, and actually the summer camp that I worked at was at my old school, and we were right next to Glastonbury. So when we were there in the summer, I sort of through osmosis kind of took in Glastonbury. So whenever people talk about Glastonbury, I always kind of feel the need to go, yeah, I know what you mean. So I feel like I've been there even though I haven't.
Yeah.
But yeah, even before COVID, I just don't like crowds. I really don't like I mean, I've been to quite a few concerts, and even though I love music and I love being sort of, watching someone perform, I really just don't like being in crowds and just kind of not being able to escape almost.
Yeah.
I don't know where I'm escaping to, but it's just the not being able to move and not being able to really, and the whole mosh pit thing as well. I mean, I've never been in a mosh pit, but it just really is not, it would not be good for me. I don't think.
No. I mean, I was in one a couple of times, or I've been in a few, and someone at one point in Latitude Festival, when I was like 17 or something, poured their entire beer over me.
Oh no, that's another thing, isn't it? If you're in a crowd and you've got drinks and you want to enjoy the performance, it's inevitable that you're going to spill your drink, isn't it? And that you're going to either spill it on yourself or spill it on someone. So
I know, the only thing that I could think at the time was that apparently beer is meant to be quite good for your hair. But I mean,
I've heard that. I've also heard that vodka apparently is meant to be really, really good for your skin, supposedly.
Like if you drink it or if you rub it on your skin?
No, I think if you rub it on your skin, in the same way that if you put beer in your hair, I'm not sure what it's meant to do to your hair, but vodka I've heard is apparently very, very good for your skin because it opens up your pores apparently. And I don't know, we don't recommend that you do that, by the way, but
yeah, no, it's just a waste of a good drink in my opinion. But yeah, no, I completely understand why the mosh pit thing wouldn't really appeal to you. Again, I guess it depends on maybe like the kind of concert or gig or festival you go to. I mean, some music is really hard to mosh to. I mean, I went to see one of the headliners at Latitude was Lily Allen, and someone started
Lily Allen.
She's great, but someone started to try a mosh pit, and I was like, "Come on, like you cannot mosh to Lily Allen." Like, stop.
I don't think. I mean, she's got some good songs, but I don't know if there's any mosh pit worthy ones.
they're not moshable, if that's a
Yeah.
verb. And so yeah, my friends and I were not impressed. We just wanted to like sing along, relive our childhood. Found out I knew way too many lyrics of Lily Allen, actually. Massive fan, low key.
Yeah, well, I
Um,
think, as you say, it's nostalgia in a way, because Lily Allen released songs sort of in the mid 2000s, wasn't it? Kind of 2005, 2006, and that was obviously when we were kind of entering. Yeah, we were about 10 or 11 pre-teens, and it's
mm,
funny, isn't it? Because I relate to what you're saying when you say that you kind of just know the lyrics of songs, and you can go 10 years without having listened to a song, but because you maybe listened to it when you were younger, you know the lyrics because it was a very popular song, and you just have absorbed it into your brain. I have that with songs by Coldplay actually, and Oasis mainly, just because you listen to it when you're younger and then time goes by. It's a bit like High School Musical as well, in that, you know, we watched that quite a lot when we were younger, and then obviously 10 years go by, and then some all of a sudden the song comes on, and you can just remember the lyrics as if no time has passed at all. It's
I mean,
it's a funny thing, music, isn't it? How it just kind of, you just absorb it.
you make memories. Like honestly, I can't take someone seriously when they say, "What time is it?" I have to say summertime,
Yeah.
which is obviously the massive tagline of High School Musical. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and if someone says we're all in this together, you just feel the need to go yes.
it's so true. But yeah, my friends actually booked tickets to see. Do you remember JLS? Back
Yes,
in the day.
yes, that was
So
actually the first concert that I went to. It was a JLS concert
no
in
way.
2011, I think. I remember it was
Oh,
at Liberty Stadium in Swansea. It was at the end of June. It was raining, and I remember it was the very first concert that I went to, a JLS concert. And Ollie
amazing.
Murs was headlining as well. He was really good actually, and JLS were great as well. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah. I think it's no,
Reliving
no. I think it's. I mean, I'll just let you relive your fantasy. I'll give you a minute, Rachel.
my-
No, I had a massive crush on Aston, to be fair. But I
Yeah,
think
me
it's
too.
like
Me
our
too.
generation just kind of like wants to relive that. Like obviously the Spice Girls had like a massive,
Mm,
massive comeback for their reunion tour, which I'm really glad was able to happen looking back.
me too.
Then JLS was obviously going on in December. It's obviously been, put back, so it's going to be this year now.
Mm.
But there's just so much. Like I'm waiting for S Club to do a reunion personally. I'm
Yes.
an S Club fan.
And it could happen, couldn't it? Because Steps are reunited, as you say, the Spice Girls are reunited. The Saturdays also did a thing a couple of years ago, Girls Aloud. Obviously,
Yeah.
that was quite a while. I remember when they did their reunion. It must have been, when was it, 2011, 2010, maybe?
Okay.
Gosh, I feel so old.
Yeah. Back in their days.
Mm.
But yeah, no, and then in the meantime, Daft Punk has just announced that they're breaking up, and it's like, I mean, they're a really great duo, like great disco vibes, but we haven't heard from them really for about 7 or 8 years. So it does
Mm.
seem slightly strange that they are now announcing after everything that they are breaking up. But I mean,
Yeah.
maybe it just had to be done officially.
Yeah, I think it is also quite nerve-wracking as well. It must be quite nerve-wracking for bands, because obviously when they're together at a certain time and they're very, very popular, and then they go on a break and then they come back together again, it must be quite nerve-wracking to, I mean, I feel nervous for them, because obviously
Mm,
there's a huge, huge expectation and pressure for them to perform as well as they did when they were first popular. But I think, having said that, most groups, Spice Girls, for example, Backstreet Boys and Boyzone, they all have nailed the reunion. And
mhm.
yeah, but I think it is quite nerve-wracking, isn't it? And there must be a lot of pressure on them. They must feel a lot of pressure.
100%. And I think also, like, people are going to be expecting Jerry Halliwell to look, as young as she did back in the
Mm,
day. And that's just not going to be the case. And
uh,
obviously, these celebrities are still in the public light. But I think for many people, seeing them again in the flesh, you kind of want, if I saw Aston again, he's probably going to look a lot older and probably not how I remember him, because I haven't actually checked what he looks like recently. I just,
mm,
Aston has been my childhood crush and he's gone. But I think I would be at the least surprised if I saw JLS reunite or something.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, no, back onto festivals. So, and the Olympics more in general. When are the Olympics set to go ahead, Rach?
The Olympics are set to go ahead. I think it's the end of July. Yeah, I've got it here. So from, 23rd of July until the 8th of August. And on their official website, they've got a huge countdown, 138 days to go to the Olympics, which doesn't sound like very long at all, does it? And yeah, this follows on from obviously the Olympic committees saying, I think it was a few weeks ago, maybe even a month ago now, I've lost count of time and in lockdown, saying that the Olympics were going to go ahead. And obviously that caused some people to celebrate and think, wow, this is a really great thing. I was among them to think this is a really great thing. But obviously for some people, there's skepticism, there's sort of logistical concerns as to how it will happen. Obviously, what's going to happen with crowds, what's going to happen with the Olympic Village, huge clusters of people living together, which is obviously part of why the Olympics is so great, because obviously people from all over the world come together, and they don't all live together, but they all live together in the Olympic Village, and there's a huge amount of sort of patriotism and sort of supporting other countries and just kind of meeting new people. But obviously with coronavirus, how is that going to happen? Obviously there's some countries are more advanced in their vaccine rollout than others. And I don't really know what the answer is, to be honest. I don't know. I don't know. Obviously not everybody in the world is going to be vaccinated by July. But having said that, I think AstraZeneca came out recently and said that they intend to get 2 billion people vaccinated by the end of this year. And UK is obviously doing very, very well in terms of their vaccine rollout. But yeah, I don't know what the answer is, because obviously we are doing quite well as one country, but other countries aren't. Other countries are still quite far behind, even though they are getting their vaccines delivered and they are being rolled out and they are vaccinating people in their country. They're still not going to be ready to send athletes to the Olympics. And then obviously you think, okay, well then should athletes maybe be vaccinated? But then are they then jumping the queue are they jumping the queue for other people who maybe need the vaccine more than they? It's a really tricky one, isn't it?
It is really difficult. Well, I'm going to use this short break to quickly wise up on my Olympic knowledge, but don't go anywhere. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Stay with us.
ICL Call, a smart and reliable way to make international calls. Now you can call from anywhere in the world using ICL Call app without any roaming charges. You can also use our pinless services, not only in the UK but also from Europe, and call your loved ones abroad with competitive rates. Use ICL Call service from your landline, PC or any mobile phones. Register free on www.iclcall.com and start using the service that suits you.
We're back. How's your Olympic knowledge going, Kate, in that 1 minute?
I mean, I can't lie. I was too scared about being caught out again by the camera to actually have a look through. If you've just tuned in, you are listening to the Uni Show with me, Kate.
And me, Rach. And we're talking about the Tokyo Olympics, which are to go ahead this summer. As far as we know, obviously nothing has come out from the Olympic Committee to say that they're now not going ahead. However, Japan's government released a statement on the 7th of March. I've just read. Japan's government are reportedly leaning towards banning all overseas spectators for the Olympics and the Paralympic Games, with a decision to be confirmed by the end of March, which for any sports fan and sports spectator, that is going to be absolutely devastating, because how can you have the sport and the celebration that hopefully comes with that without the fans? It obviously, the Premier League has been going ahead. Matches have been going ahead without crowds. Although weirdly, if you watch it on TV, there is you can hear the crowd in the background, even though there's no crowd, which is obviously a strange one. It kind of makes you think, okay, well, will that happen with Tokyo? But then that's obviously it's a weird one, isn't it? Because that's obviously not what the athletes will be able to hear, because they will be competing in an empty stadium virtually, and there won't be any of the thrill and the motivation, arguably, that you get as an athlete. I said I'm not an athlete, by the way, but
from experience.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, if you think of 2012, for example, when the Olympics took place in London, and obviously that was obviously slightly different because it was a home crowd, but half of the thrill and the excitement and the motivation for the athletes comes from the fans and the cheering and the support that they get from crowds. So
no, I was going to ask about the crowd situation, like whether they were actually planning on having crowds at all, because I know obviously some theatre performances have been happening, but they've just been live streamed and there haven't been any crowds. And then obviously the football and everything, they've not had the crowds, they've not had the fans or the supporters, they've just been playing themselves. So they're planning on having like Japanese, keeping it within Japan, having spectators as far as it stands.
Yeah, well, I think, let me just read back what I said. Well, they haven't actually, they've just said they're reportedly, so obviously nothing's been confirmed yet, that they might potentially ban overseas spectators. But then I don't know what the situation will be in Japan, whether they will then only allow a certain number of fans in Japan to come and watch the games. I'm not sure. I think they'll give a statement at the end of the month, I think. But this is a strange one, isn't it? It's going to be a very, very unique Olympic Games as
I think
post Corona.
I think you're so right what you were saying about, not having that same, as an athlete, it must be really, really odd not to have that kind of like applause or people watching, family in the crowd, things like that. It must be really, really disconcerting. And I think similarly for many musicians linking it to festivals, I think virtually performing on live streams, as fun as it can be, I think it must be really, really disconcerting because you don't have the reaction of the crowd to what you're doing. So say if you're kind of like improvising or you're presenting a new work, or maybe like even with comedy, any of those kind of things where you need to gauge like a crowd reaction, it must be really, really odd not to have that and to not really have that kind of reassurance that you're doing the right thing and you are pleasing the crowd, so to speak.
Absolutely. It really does impact your performance, doesn't it? Whether you're a sports person or a musician or just a performer, it really does. It is a driving force in a sense, because as you say, you can gauge the atmosphere, and if you're a sports person, it can be used as motivation. And I think, as you say, like most things that have been that have been done virtually, they were fine in the beginning. When we first had lockdown, it was a bit like banana bread, in that it was fine at first. It was novel, it was fun, it was sort of like, oh, this is new and exciting. And then after the 50th or 60th time, it was just not nowhere as good. But then this is reality almost, isn't it? I mean, I don't know when the theatres, I don't know if if theatres will be reopening, if they're on the list to open with hospitality. I
would have thought with hospitality, and I think that's May 17th, but I You can't quote me on that. But given that retail and hospitality is opening, then I'd assume that they'd probably have socially distanced seating, which is what they were doing before, I think, prior to Christmas.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely a step in the right direction, pun intended. But it does make you think, will we ever go back to full crowds, be it in a theatre, be it at a festival, be it at a sports stadium as we did before?
Yeah, so are they planning on having all events going ahead at the Olympics this year, or is it going to be like a smaller kind of thing? And, is the Paralympics going to be happening?
Yeah,
sorry, I know you're not an Olympic spokeswoman, but
no, I think so. I think they've come out and said these Olympic Games and Paralympic Games will fully be going ahead. But obviously, from now until July, there's a huge amount of, like Glastonbury, there's a huge amount of logistical challenges. There's planning and preparation for the venues in Tokyo and the Japanese government to actually do, and obviously for the athletes who have to train, they've got a huge amount to do. But having said that, I don't know what the situation is with some training venues, for example, swimming pools and gyms, and wherever it might be that you train, you obviously haven't been able to. So does that that obviously puts you at a disadvantage because you haven't been able to train to the extent that you would had coronavirus not happened.
And I think also like nerves. I think when you have that kind of crowd pressure, I know for me personally, if I think back to like my horrendous school performances in plays, you have that kind of nerve when the whole crowd is there and the whole school's watching, and on a giant level, you might not have that same kind of like adrenaline rush that you get with everyone watching, and you might not perform or like push yourself to the best of your ability. And like from another like aspect of it, I guess the Olympics generate so much tourism. If they're saying that it's just going to be kept within Japan and there won't be international travel, like obviously for Japan, like a large amount of the Olympic Games and the funding of the Olympic Games would come from, tourists coming, like flocking, like, we saw in London 2012. I don't know if you went or anything, but just as a Londoner myself, seeing the amount of tourism that was generated from that, and the industry was booming. And I think, how can they afford to fund something when they're going to be putting so much money into stadiums and training grounds and the village itself? How can they possibly justify that or break even when they'll just be having kind of like domestic tourism? I don't know if that'll be enough for it, really.
Absolutely. And as you say, it's not just the venues in the Olympic Village and the actual Olympics, it's also the hospitality sectors, and it's the local hotels, and it's the tourism shops and the souvenir shops that all tourists go to when they attend the Olympics because they want a souvenir, and it's the local businesses that they end up supporting and buying stuff from when they go. So it at this point it really is just a huge question mark. But I think the only alternative would have been for the Olympics to be postponed again, I suppose. But then that again causes a whole load of other problems, because then the Olympics after that, the 2024 Olympics, which are set to take place in Paris, I believe, that then messes with them, because then it won't be 4 years for them. It will only be 2 years. So then is it then a domino effect? Did the Paris Olympics then get postponed? It's a minefield. It really is.
For the athletes themselves, like I know that obviously every year counts age-wise, and if you were planning on performing at the 2020 Olympics and then it got pushed back like initially to 2021 and then 2022, that could potentially make the difference between you being able to perform again and not. From an athlete going from about 29 to 31, there's like enough of a difference, I think, in that kind of competitive field that you probably won't be at your game. And especially if you've been mentally preparing since the postponement of the last Olympics for this one and you've been training, I would be so disappointed to have that all wasted for another year and to potentially miss out on that and the training that you put in, because obviously it's such a huge investment. If you're an athlete, it is your life. And, if you're in training, that becomes your life.
It is such a huge investment. And I think when lockdown first happened in March 2020, it was, as with most people, it was incredibly challenging for athletes, kind of being so directionless, because obviously the games weren't, there was uncertainty over whether or not the games would take place, and then obviously they were postponed. So then as an athlete, having to adjust your mindset to, right, okay, I've got another year of training to do, but then you're having to motivate yourself and push yourself for something that might not even happen. So it's a very, very tricky one for an athlete. Again, I'm speaking personally, but it's a huge amount of adjustment and sort of having to but then I guess that's part of being an athlete. It's overcoming adversity. It's having to adjust and adapt to things that are out of your control. And just following on from the point that you were saying about being in your peak performance. Having said that, just to play devil's advocate, some athletes will be injured, so they'll be injured at the moment. So you could argue that, you could argue that they had previously been injured at the time of the Tokyo 2020 Olympics, and now they are at their peak. So it could work in their favor, because now, if they were to continue training until next year, they might actually succumb to injury next year, and they might not be at their peak. So it's all, it's all about your perspective, isn't it?
Yeah, no, definitely. We will be taking another short break now before the last 15 minutes of the show. But again, don't go anywhere. Keep it locked in.
Stay with us. Hello, we're back.
We are back. You're listening to the Uni Show
with me, Rach.
And me, Kate.
So we've been talking about the Olympics and festivals, and just I guess another way in which the two are linked, I guess, are the question of vaccine passports. So obviously there's talk at the moment of people who have had the vaccine potentially having some sort of vaccine passport to show that they've had the vaccine, be it the AstraZeneca one or the Oxford one or whichever one it may be. Do you think perhaps one of the solutions to the festival, for example, I obviously don't know what's happening with Reading Festival. I don't know if they'll be checking to see whether or not people have had the vaccine. If we think of festivals in the UK, for example, would you say the vast majority of people who attend festivals are, say, under 40 or under 35? I mean, I don't know. I'm just...
Yeah, I don't know how it would work, because say, for instance, I'm not eligible for the vaccine until, say, September, because, we're in that age group that's just not priority. And yet there'll be festivals like El Dorado going ahead aimed at our age group in July. So I just don't see how, personally, they can introduce a vaccine passport when we cannot actually possibly have a vaccine before the festival happens. And even if we were, to be honest, I think there'd be such an outcry if a vaccine passport system was introduced, really. I just think it is some kind of, although as a devil's advocate, I can see obviously like why it would be really, really helpful and it would hopefully stop the spread of the virus. But also I think people would probably protest, saying it would be kind of an infringement of liberty, the fact that they are being denied from doing certain activities because of their own personal choice not to have a vaccine, whether that's because they have, family members that they don't want to, I can't really think of a reason, but there might be many, many reasons why many people might not want a vaccine, and kind of like the unknown of it. And so, I just think,
the reasons for not having a vaccine are complex and numerous. So it's not necessarily just because of one thing. It can be a number of things, as you say.
Yeah, no, it'd be really interesting to see if anyone's listening in, if they have any experiences with the vaccine, or if they, if you guys listening, thinking of having it or not. I mean, it's just a massive range of opinion. But yeah, within that, also, I don't really know how you'd necessarily, like, even if one were to be introduced, like a vaccine passport system, like how effective would that be? And like, I don't know how it could really work. Where do you kind of stand on it, Rach? What do you think?
I genuinely don't really know. As I was saying, I don't know how it's going to go ahead with the Reading Festival. I'm using that example just because I know that Reading Festival is the only one that is concrete. Well, the only one that I know of. I know you mentioned some other ones, Creamfields and some other ones, but I guess speaking of those, I don't know how they will go ahead with the festival, and whether or not they will police people as they come in the same way that people are, they have their temperatures checked when you go certain places. Where did I go recently where I had my temperature checked? I think it was actually, this was quite a while ago. I went to a cafe or restaurant somewhere, and they take your temperature, and obviously then you have to do the whole track and trace thing. Whether or not they will do that at these festivals, if you think about the number of people who attend festivals, that is obviously a huge logistical operation. But yeah, as you say, I haven't been to a festival, so I don't know. But I would say the vast majority of people who go to festivals are young. So younger, I should say, under the age of, say, 40. But then having said that, there is huge variety, isn't there? Because if you think of Glastonbury, the hundreds of thousands of people who attend there are obviously of all ages.
True. Although I think if there was to be a vaccine passport system this year, it would be a festival of over 40s.
Yeah.
Probably would, no one else would be eligible to go. And like, adding to that, like, there's always that one person that sneaks in. You know what I mean? There's always a couple of people that manage to get into Glastonbury because they bunked the fence or the queue. And it would only take the situation one person to sneak in for suddenly,
throw a spanner in the works.
2.0 to like, God, you know what I mean? So I just don't feel like it's like a realistic system. And I don't think the hospitality industry can afford it either this year, to be honest.
Yes, you're right. I'm just going to see if I can find a statement from Reading Festival. So Reading Festival is going ahead from the 27th of August to the 29th of August. And as we said, I think a lot of people will have been vaccinated by then. I'm just looking at so Stormzy will be at Reading, Lewis Capaldi, Catfish, Post Malone, some really big names here, Liam Gallagher, Jerry Cinnamon, KSI, Bad Boy, and there's 2 main stages, 6 headliners, and no clashes apparently, and this is all sold out according to their website. All tickets have been sold.
You had me until sold out.
I mean, I'm not surprised with those headliners. I mean,
well, as I said, like, I think UK 2021 is going to go on a bit of a madness. Like, I saw a tweet the other day, like, I'm going to be doing Shoreditch like I've never done Shoreditch before. And I think, that's what you get when you lock up a bunch of hormonal teens and young 20-year-olds for majority of a year. And this is the outcome, which is great. And I mean, it's really exciting that all these acts are kind of like putting themselves forward. And I think it is a domino effect, because I think, as soon as some of the big names start taking that risk and performing and signing up to festivals, a lot of smaller things follow, which is really exciting. Like, when I had the news that Glastonbury was cancelled, I was gutted, not just for Glastonbury, but I kind of thought, you know, if this one isn't going ahead, then there's no way that other festivals can condone it. So, you know, when other things started coming out, that was just so exciting for me. I was like, you know, there is actually a potential to have a summer this year. And, you know, although I'm not kind of looking into going abroad, I think that is a bit risky, both in terms of, you know, Brazilian strains and what have you, and also just in terms of like holidays being put back and airlines going bust in the meantime. I think it is quite a risky business. Although some of my friends have booked Croatia, which is lovely. But
like I guess the flights are all still going ahead, aren't they? And you are still able to go. You obviously have to make sure that you quarantine when you get back, which I think is obviously the danger, because some people don't quarantine when they come back from a holiday or whatever it may be.
Yeah, plus you're paying like so much for a COVID test before you go. You're going to be probably paying like 1.5 times your ticket just to be tested to make sure you're negative, and then go, and then test when you get there probably, and then quarantine. And, you know, for someone like you that works as well, how on earth would you factor in something like that long for a holiday? They'd be having to give you about 6 weeks just to factor in 2 weeks either side.
I don't know, actually. I think you could take holiday. Let's say I took a week holiday, but then I guess I would have to quarantine for 2 weeks after that. And I guess you could just ask your employer if you wanted to work from home. So I guess it would be down to the employer, I suppose, or the alternative would just be to take 3 weeks holiday, factoring in the week holiday that you want to take and the 2 weeks quarantine that you would then have to take. But I think just a final point on the festivals is that they're obviously outdoors, and there's obviously some argument for being outdoors. You know, it's better to be outdoors. Obviously the number of people outdoors is another issue, but being outdoors, being in the fresh air, being in the sunshine, hopefully being in the warmth, although this is the UK, isn't it? So we can't always rely on good weather, especially in August. At the end of August is always when it starts to rain, isn't it?
Yeah, it could be a bit of a risky business, August. I mean, obviously I'm booking these festivals and looking at them with no thoughts to the weather. I mean, I will go rain, shine, storm, blizzard, doesn't really matter to me. But August can be a bit of an elusive month. From then on, you're playing on borrowed time in terms of the weather.
We shall see. Well, I think that concludes it rather nicely. So you have been watching the Uni Show with me, Kate. Sorry, I'm not Kate.
Well, I mean,
okay,
who you want to be? Just one of my many fans and impersonators.
I'm a big fan. Maybe next time you can pretend to be me and I'll pretend to be you.
Well, exactly, it's the thing. So yeah, you've been watching the Uni Show with me, Kate.
And me, Rach, although we are interchangeable.
And yeah, we've been just having a bit of a chit chat about festivals, the Olympics going ahead, and you can expect more student-based topics coming up in the coming weeks.
We will be back here next week from 10 o'clock, and please do get in touch if you want us to talk about anything. If you want to discuss something, please do get in touch with us on social media, on Instagram, WhatsApp and Facebook. All of the information is here, and we will see you very soon.